Hey guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing a unhaul. I've not done an unhaul since back in August, I believe. That was when I was about to move. So I was trying to like declutter my shelves. So recently I have gotten new shelves. So I will leave that video link down below of me and my father putting up those shelves. But once I had my shelves up and I was rearranging books and whatnot, I have some more books that I wanted to get rid of. And now at this point in time, I think all the books on my shelves I have either already read or have some intention of reading sometime in the future. So a lot of these books that I'm going to be unhauling are books that I've already read and probably DNF'd or read and did not like, or I know that there is not a chance that I'm going to pick these up ever. So we are just going to go ahead and get started. I'm not going to really go into a lot of detail about what the books are about. I'm just going to go ahead and give you sort of a reason of why I decided to unhaul them. So we will go ahead and get started. So the first stack of books that I want to talk about are some books that I've read or attempted to read and they just did not work out. The first one being The Other People. This was just really boring and I think I got almost halfway into this before I decided to put this one down. I do want to check out more books by CJ Tudor and I have another book or two by this author, so I haven't given up. It's just this one just was not my cup of tea. Then I have Goldilocks here. This is another one that I attempted to read and I DNF'd it, and I was interested in this because it was supposed to be about women up in space. This is my second book that I've tried to read about women up in space and it just did not work for me. It was really slow and I'm beginning to think maybe women in space is not my thing. Then I have The Helsinki Affair. I really wanted to like this one because this is a spy thriller. I believe at the time I picked this up, this was probably like my second one that I've ever tried to read. The first one that I read was fine. This one, not so much. The timeline is really what got me in here because it kept jumping all over the place. And I was listening to this on audio. And I feel like if you don't have the physical book nearby when you're listening to it, it's very easy to get lost in the timeline and the story just overall wasn't interesting. So obviously I didn't continue with this. The next book that I will be getting rid of is Rouge, and I had a feeling, just a tiny inkling, that this probably was not going to be the book for me because Rouge is by Mona Awad. She is the author of Bunny, which is a book that everybody really adores, and I understand, but I did not like that book. I believe I gave Bunny like 1 star. It just was not my type of story, and this one was the same. I just could not get into it. I felt it was very heavy-handed with the messaging that it was trying to provide, and it was very fever dreamish, and it was not the type of dream that I wanted to be in. So I DNF this one. I'm going to be getting rid of Bright Young Women. This is a book that a lot of people seem to enjoy, so I'm just gonna say this is more of a me thing. It had a really strong start. There was a really like brutal murder that took place in the beginning that really grabbed my attention, and then after that I no longer was interested. It was slow again. It had like a confusing timeline. I wasn't connected to any of the characters. At a point, I thought that this was going to be like a soft DNF. I thought maybe it was my mood. I just wasn't like feeling it at the time, but I actually forgot that I had this until I was about to do this video. So it's clear that I am not going to pick this up ever. Then I have Happiness Falls. This is another one that I attempted to read and it just did not work for me. I do have this author's other book, Miracle Creek, that people seem to rate highly, but this one, again, it was just one of those books that had like a really slow start, and I just was not interested in any of the characters, especially the main character that we were getting the story from. She just kept having a lot of these like random thoughts that kept pulling me in and out of the story, and so I just put this one down, and I put this one down pretty early on. I want to say like 30 or 40 pages in, and I usually don't DNF that early, but that tells you a lot of how I was just not connecting with the story at all. So then I have this series by Kirsten White that I've not read, but I picked them up and I don't even remember why I randomly picked this series up. I believe this was something that was popular like years ago on BookTube, and this is a young adult, I want to say historical like fantasy. The first book is And I Darken. Then we have, I think this is the next one, Now I Rise, and then Bright We Burn. I just had these on my shelves for a long time, and I just don't see myself grabbing these anytime soon. So I'm gonna go ahead and let these go. Then I have Leave the World Behind. Recently read this specifically for a video, which I will have linked down below in case you guys are interested, but this just did not work for me. I did actually complete this book and I gave it 2 stars. It was just really boring, was not connecting with any of the characters, and I just wanted to see more of what was taking place in this world that this book was revolved around. And a lot of people seem to not enjoy this one, so even when I went into it, my expectations weren't that high, but it still sounded like something that I could be entertained by, but it was not. Then I'm really sad to let this one go. This is also another one that I have recently read. This is Blood Like Magic. It is a young adult fantasy, but it just did not work for me. I gave it almost 200 pages before I decided to DNF this one. I was interested in like the magic because this revolves around witches, but it just took too long for the plot to start for me. I think it was almost like 100 pages in, and then by the time the plot started, I just was no longer interested, and I never wanted to pick this back up anytime I put it down. So we're just gonna go ahead and say goodbye to this. This is another series that really pains me that I'm going to be getting rid of, and this is The Rage of Dragons, and then the second book, Fires of Vengeance. So I recently read this book at the beginning of the year, but I unfortunately had to DNF it, and I got so far. I think it was about 300-ish pages I got into this, but the main character, Tao, was just not that interesting to me. He was actually kind of infuriating at times, and then I did like aspects of the magic, but there weren't any dragons. And when I was contemplating on getting rid of this, a lot of people were telling me that, well, if you keep going, you know, the dragons show up at the end, but I'm like, why do I have to read almost 500 pages of a book to get to some dragons that were alluded to in the title? And because I thought that I was going to really enjoy this one, I did purchase the second book because I just knew in my soul that this was going to be like an all-time favorite series. Unfortunately, it was not, so I'm going to be getting rid of both books. Then I have a romance, The Roughest Draft. I read this specifically for a video that I will have linked down below in case you guys are interested, where I was comparing this book and Beach Read by Emily Henry, which I was not a fan of either of them, and definitely was not a fan of this one, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this. And then I have This Mortal Coil. I don't even remember what this is about. I thought this was like dystopian, and I think that it is, but the fact that 1, I forgot that I had it, and 2, I don't even have a clue about what this was about, I think it's safe to say that we can also go ahead and get rid of this one. Next up, we have It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. So this was my first Colleen Hoover book. I'm not like a Colleen Hoover hater because this is the only one that I've read, but this one just was fine. It wasn't this groundbreaking story that I thought it was gonna be based off of other people's reviews, and because I just felt kind of mad about it, don't really think that I need to keep this one around. Then I have 2 books by the same author that I'm gonna be getting rid of. They're both young adult fantasy. So this one is Warrior of the Wilds, and then we have Blade of Secrets. I was really excited when I got both of these books like years ago. I was like more into like my YA fantasy mood, which I still enjoy YA fantasy, but I'm really picky about what I pick up these days. And these have just been sitting on my shelves forever, and I don't think that I'm ever going to get to them. So I'm just gonna go ahead and unhaul these. And then we have Skin of the Sea. Let me just start off by saying, this is a gorgeous cover. So I did attempt to read this. This was one of the ones that I was gonna do like a soft DNF for. I literally only got like a couple of pages in. I was trying to listen to it on audio and that was not working. So I was like, well, maybe I just need to read it physically, and I've never picked it back up, and I don't think I'm ever going to pick this back up. I've seen people have enjoyed it. I just don't think it's going to be a book that I'm going to prioritize anytime soon, and I'm just not going to keep it. This is another book that I have recently DNF'd. So this is The Girl Who Can Move Shit With Her Mind. This was boring. It had a very like action-packed start to it. Then the book just slowed down tremendously. I still have the bookmark in it. I stopped at page 82. So yeah, not gonna come back to this one. So then I am getting rid of Leviathan Wakes. I have not read this, and I'm only getting rid of this one is because I was gifted another copy. So there is no reason why I need to have 2 copies. This is definitely a book that I plan on reading. I'm excited to read it, but I just had extra copies and I no longer need this one. I'm going to be reading from my gifted copies that I have. So I have like this other copy plus the next 2 books in the series, and then I have like the anniversary edition. So plan on coming back to this one, just don't need this copy. And then the last 2 books that I'm going to be getting rid of are books that I have read but just didn't enjoy. The first one being The Vicious Circle. This is about a cult. I went into this really thinking that I was going to enjoy it because I love any story that is revolving around cults, but this just didn't do like anything new. It was just like your stereotypical cult story, and I wanted more from this, and unfortunately it just did not give me that. Then the last book that I will be unhauling is When I'm Dead, and I went into this with a bad taste in my mouth anyways because this is like the 3rd book in a series, and Book of the Month had offered it but didn't tell anybody that it was part of a series. And while I think, yes, you can read this as a standalone, there was also moments in this where I feel like they were talking about other cases, or they brought up other cases, and I was like, it's probably in those other 2 books that I didn't read. And I just felt like this was boring. The audiobook, oh my gosh, for one of the characters in here was so annoying because when we started reading from her perspective, I'm pretty sure her name was Rowan. I won't forget that. Yes. Her name was Rowan, and every time we would get to her perspective, all of a sudden it sounded like the narrator was whispering. And I'm like, lady, why are you whispering? Like, I can't hear you. I can't turn up my volume anymore. I have to like strain to hear you from this perspective. On top of that, the story was just boring and underwhelming. So I am going to be getting rid of this one. So those are all of the books that I will be unhauling. This was a really, really quick video, but I don't think that I will be unhauling anything else anytime soon. But if I have any videos that are specifically related to any of these books that I will be unhauling, I will link those down below in case you guys want some more information into those books. But that is all that I have for you guys, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.